As promised, we have the Firecracker Startup panel now. We're going to talk about the challenges for startups, the ecosystem, and how to overcome those challenges. I was telling you before this is one thing you shouldn't be missing. May I please call upon stage Mr. Prashant Gulati. You got to clap. A serial entrepreneur, a trustee on Thai Global. Prashant. Vishal Gondal, founder and CEO IndiaGames.com, rated as one of the 15 coolest entrepreneurs, one of the 25 most powerful people on India digital business scene. You got to get better than that. Not happening. Rehan Yar Khan, the founder of Flora 2000, the international flower delivery system, and a board member of Indian Angel Networks. We spoke something about getting your hands together. And now it's my absolute pleasure, honor, delight to welcome my friend, mentor, guide, the founder and CEO of Games to Win, someone who dreams of $1 billion company and 1 million entrepreneurs, a Robin Hood, Alok Kejriwal.
Kind of difficult to start a session when it's already been termed a firecracker session, except if we actually set everything on fire.
Expectations are now pretty high up there.
Well, I've got good guys with me, so no.
I'm sure.
So, the topic that we've been given is something which is an important topic, and that is talk about startups. Which is kind of, how many of you are starting startups? That's all. It's not 100%, Alok. Everybody should be starting a startup. So the topic is a bit serious to start with, and we'll try to make it as interesting as possible. And the topic that we've been given is on startup ecosystems. And what does it take to build an ecosystem? Does India have the ecosystem, or is this something that we can do to add to the ecosystem? And different cities around the world have talked about creating Silicon Valleys all around. Nobody has succeeded. Why so? Or would we build our own models of Silicon Valleys in India? So let me start with 3 of my illustrious panelists. All of them have great things to talk about and great things to tell us about. Let me start with Vishal. A 140-character introduction, and what do you think about the topic to start with?
I think, startup has suddenly become a very sexy word. There was a time when, 10 years back, when we got funded or when we were in the market, we wouldn't want to call ourselves a startup. It was all about, no, we are not a startup. We have 5 customers or we have 8 employees. And it was something which you normally hid behind the closet. Today, the world is definitely different. We are talking of an ecosystem. There are people called investors, real investors do exist, who are willing to fund you. There is a real opportunity. There are customers. There are people making money. There are people willing to spend money. So there hasn't been a better time than today to start up and go build your dreams. So I think great time to be in the ecosystem. I don't know whether it exists or no, but yeah, there is something.
Alok?
I think we've always been starting up ever since we did our 10th standard exam. It's just that no one told us that we were starting up. So if you look at the ICSE or SSC or whatever, exam bunk we did, there was startup. It has the same contours of struggle, hope, sacrifice, result, and then chance and luck, right? If you have fever, God, what's going to happen to you? So right from 10th to wherever we are today, whether you're in a stupid job with a stupid boss, you're starting up every day because you're convincing yourself to go to that goddamn office and, bear the day. The only context is people like us do it, thankfully, a little bit for ourselves. People who are on the other side do it for someone else, but you're always starting up. And I think to get funding for starting up a passion is the entrepreneurial side. So I think it's all about saying, boss, I want to do something and I have the right startup legacy behind me. It doesn't mean that you should have done a .com.
The Marwari genes have something to do with it?
Not really, we always struggle. If they're not here, we wouldn't be sitting in this room. We've all started up. Except that we haven't realized that.
Rehan, different perspective, similar.
Similar perspective, 1.2 billion people. We're going from 50 million smartphones to 500 million smartphones. We have crossed 100 million internet users. Only 60 companies got funded this year. Just shows the opportunity you have for setting up a company, to address this massive exploding market in India. Funding is available, mentorship is available. First generation, the first wave and the second wave of entrepreneurs has come. There's a lot of learning from them. They're able to transfer that onto you. I think great time to start up. A lot of help available on every stage. A lot of opportunity.
Let me start with a question like, what makes the entrepreneurial ecosystem? So there are a lot of people over the last day and a half. We met a lot of young people with a lot of stars in their eyes wanting to build that. And I'm sure a lot of them will face a lot of hardship before they succeed, or what is called success for them. What are the pieces that we see have come in the last few years are more available? And what are the things that are still missing? So
since many people wanted to start up here, let me ask you a simple question. How many of you have business plans? Wow. A lot of you. And this is exactly the problem of the startup ecosystem.
These ones will fail.
What we are looking for is balls and not business plans. I get 1 million people coming to me that this is a great business. I'm going to make millions of dollars. But you know what? I have to pay myself this salary, and till I don't get funding, I cannot start it. So the whole thing stops there.
Are you an MBA, Vishal?
Of course not. Of course not. So the problem lies there. Where are the bloody balls? Where are people saying that I've left everything, I have sold my wife's jewelry or whatever else, and here I am doing this, and I'm going to make it big, and if you want to support me, come and help me. That's the kind of people we want to meet, and unfortunately, there is one like this, and 2, 3. So that's the problem. That's the start of the problem of the ecosystem, and unfortunately, these MBA types are only encouraging them to make more business plans only.
So do you think we should have a new acronym for MBA? My balls have been annihilated.
My balls exist. That's the problem. We don't see them.
No, I'm saying they have been annihilated, so he's out of the picture. Okay. Is that what you're trying to say? Once you do an MBA, you can never be an entrepreneur?
Hello? Difficult.
No,
it can be surgery.
I would actually come back to your topic, right? So what do we have? Let's focus on, Vishal very clearly talked about. I think 99 to 2012, at least when I and Vishal started to now, there are a lot of things which are cut in. So let's look at something like WordPress. Let's look at something like, Amazon Cloud Server. We didn't have that. We used to run around some weirdo guys in Chennai trying to host our site. And the bugger used to be eating dosa when we used to keep calling him and saying, boot my site up. So these things don't matter anymore. You got Bluehost, you got Amazon, you got technology, you got WordPress, you got Joomla, you got blah, blah, blah. You can start a site with literally 100 rupees. Beg, borrow and steal.
Not
today.
100. Amazon gives you free for starting up.
I think the point I'm saying is that today you've got everything. And the excuse for not starting up is as poor as saying like I didn't feel like having a bath. So if you can't have a bath, then you can't start up.
Any points on this?
The market is there, right? So the excuse earlier one, who's going to buy this, who's going to use this, that's not there anymore. The market is there, the finances are there. Like, Alok and Vishal have pointed out, the entire ecosystem, technology ecosystem, open source software. You can get people now which are willing to join a startup. Earlier on, you could never get people to join a startup, man. I had to beg, borrow people. I'm like, no, please, and all that, But now it's pretty sexy, right? So you can get a lot of your classmates or whoever to join you to get a startup going.
I've been pitched over the last few weeks, a few months, about, you know what, you invest in startups. We are an enterprise startup recruitment company. We only recruit for startups. Those are things which have started happening, which is right. I believe there must be some people who really want to work for startups then.
I recently got pitched for a software which will help angel investors manage their startups. I'm like, fuck, that's called going and meeting them. You don't need a software.
So let's come to angels, since you picked up that point. When I look around here, I see a lot of people talking about angel investing. Huh?
Not allowed, man. I was banned by this guy. You said no.
What?
Language, man.
Yeah,
You got banned again.
Bad language not allowed, huh? Okay.
But anyway. They're going to already put the beeps.
Okay.
Why do you invite us then? Yeah?
Disney. Disney puts the beeps.
Good manners. That's what we're known for.
By the way, I'm not representing Disney or any of its affiliates or subsidiaries here, please. Disclaimer.
You were supposed to say that disclaimer as you got onto the stage.
Sorry, I missed.
Does Disney own Batman?
No. Warner Brothers.
So, talking about angel investing, most of the people on the stage are not known as angels by any stretch of imagination. They may be angel investors or whatever. So, what by you is the definition of angel investing? Alok.
Angel investing. What is the definition? I don't know where it came from, but it sounds pretty stupid, man.
I have a simpler definition. Somebody who has bigger balls than the other guy to put money there. That's it. You have a crazy idea and then you have somebody even more crazier who's saying, okay, take this money and do it.
I think angel investors is actually a kind of a sucker of a word for Shylock investor. So the guy who puts the money first is actually the sharpest in my mind, unless he's a sucker. And he's really not an angel. He's the anti-angel. It's a very nice word just to make capital sound friendly. Capital was never friendly, never will be friendly, because you're supposed to give it back. And anything that is supposed to be given back, double, triple, quadruple, is not an easy thing to do. So angels aren't angels. They're Dracula capital. Now the point is, maybe they come to your life first, which is why you think they're angels. So if you come to me and say, boss, I want 5 lakhs, Praveen might pitch to me outside to become a member. I say, पैसा लगता है क्या tie बनने के लिए? So the first thing I ask is, boss, पैसा लगता है क्या? पैसा नहीं है मेरे पास यार. I have everything else. So point is, angel is the guy who's accessible, someone who will actually be the crudest evaluator of your plan, talk to you in the hardest terms and say, balls, you're making no sense. Go and, sleep over this and come back again. Which is what, most VCs and most investors would not do, because they won't have the time and the energy to do that. So angel in that way, but Dracula when the check comes.
Rehan, formal definition. Since you sit on a formal board and talk about formally.
I think, the angel investors are those people, in addition to putting in money, they put in a lot of time with you, right? And, at least in the classic sense. They're supposed to work with you, they're supposed to be your mentor, right? So I suppose that's where the word angel comes from. Somebody, your guardian who's watching over you. The senior entrepreneur that's guiding you along your path. That's, I suppose where it comes from, the term.
But on a very serious note, do you think that angel investing to a very substantial part has become a small ticket investing, and that part of mentoring and hand-holding and spending time has gone missing somewhere on the path?
No, I don't think so. I think, people who are looking to be passive investors are investing in funds, right? People who are members of angel networks and who are hands-on, they're pretty active. Otherwise, why would you join an angel network?
Again, the criticism has been that these formal angel groups have 100, a few, members. How many of those members actually take part in the investments? Like in the sense, take active role, or for that matter,
actual
active
data there
mentoring
if you want it. So we have 250 members in Indian Angel Network. We had 70 people take leads. We had 170 people participate in investments in 2012 so far. So
I think that's the problem. So only 70 people were active out of the 250 who were actively actually picking up the phone and making things which actually angel investing is supposed to do besides the money. The money is incidental. It's small. The whole idea is to actually make it, provide invaluable support. What do you think about it? Do you think this exists, or does it require an individual angel investor like Vishal Gondal to do it? He's doing more. Is it?
I only drink a lot of coffee. That's what I do. I don't.
How many investments have you made, Vishal, in the last 1 year?
That's a good question. I think it may be in the double digits. Yeah.
Now, an individual doing double digits?
I think, honestly, when you say 70 people, I want to know how many of those 70 people really understand the business they invested in. So, Rehan, my challenge is I meet a lot of guys from these...
Forget about that. I have met some angel investors who can't recall the names of the companies they've invested in.
So
not from Mumbai Angels, luckily, but
so Mumbai,
there were people like, oh yeah, I've invested, मैंने भी angel investment किया.
So what's happening is, this is that chit fund business right now. कि 5 lakh सब ऐसे ले लो और डाल दो. And कोई horticulture में वो some gum trees will ugofy and then gum will come out of them. Boss, this is not the business of plantation. if you think you bought some acre and something came out of it, it's all screwed up.
But the good thing is that there's at least it's happening. Previously that was not happening, and always there will be some
But it
leads
damages
and
it. But Vishal, trust me, the khichdi capital in a company, 10 people with 5 lakh, I've seen enough cap tables.
No, yeah, it's not that bad. Have you seen Bheja Fry?
No, I haven't seen Bheja Fry, but whatever.
I mean, every week they can get to meet entertaining people and go and get entertained with their pitches. It's not bad.
But on a more serious note.
Bheja Fry Capital. I think you should.
But just to make my point, I've seen a lot of cap tables where a lot of time then goes in removing people, their capital.
24 investors.
Yeah, 24. Then their capital expectations are weird. Some guy says, "मेरे को double dila do." You know that typical कि हाँ मैंने 5 साल पहले gold bond लिया था, तो वो क्या पैसा हो गया?
At least I can tell you that in all my investments, it's me and maybe two other people.
But
so
those two people
Who
know
you
what they're
probably
doing, right?
invited in. Who you probably invited in.
The people know, they know what they're doing, right, Vishal? So I think the challenge is the disconnect between the capital and the intent of that capital. What is their intention for? Is it, which is what we were discussing the speaker lounge, that do these people understand why have they put the money and what will happen to the money?
Yeah, look, I think what is important is that you have a lot of people active at this asset class. Okay, so previously, you went around looking for startup funding. I don't know how you sort of got your first check. I got it like in a very, some guy at a bar wrote me a check at Bombay Gym, because he liked me and all that. It was very unstructured. So,
God.
I agreed. Huh?
Guy liked you at Bombay Gym
That's right.
and gave you a check.
Wouldn't you have wanted to be there, buddy?
He saw the balls, I guess.
So at least it's a kind of a movement that's going. It's structured. I agree, it's not perfect. Maybe it's a bit of a fad, right? Maybe it's a bit of a fad. It's cool to roam around saying, "Hey man, what are you? I'm an angel investor." It's pretty cool to say that. Earlier on, people say, "Okay, I funded a Bollywood movie," right? So now it's like, I'm an angel investor. I agree. It's cool. It's faddish, but it's happening. It's better than nothing. It's not perfect. Maybe the next generation is funds will come out of this. They'll be even more structured. Right?
I think what's missing is a Paul Graham, Y Combinator, large, chunky corridor that knows what they do, systematized investment.
There is now a supermarket of Y Combinator clones in India.
Right, which is what we should talk. So those guys, I think they're great with...
It's an idea.
Yeah.
Paul Graham's right here.
Yeah, but the point is we need hundreds of them in a country of 1.2 billion.
So I think a bigger thing that is coming out of here, it's important to have people like Indian Angel or these angel groups which have kick-started the thought. They brought the asset class, as you said. They got people interested in talking about it. But we probably need a very large number of people who would actually take the time, like our de facto Paul Graham of India.
I only take times on nights and Saturday, Sunday.
That's fine. You also.
I'm at Costa
like
Coffee
that,
only.
Okay, let's come to, besides the finance and the angel part of it, what are the other parts of the ecosystem which are essential? We see a very new thing, it's fashionable now. I think next to angel investing is, I'm doing an incubator or an accelerator. Is that something we really need in this part, or what is the space that they fill? Or what kind of incubators and accelerators do we need?
See, what is happening is that, people who are failing to raise VC rounds or become VCs, they are starting accelerators. That's really the trend. So these are all wannabe VCs and, I could not raise the money, so chalo, accelerator chalu kar diya. But they are never really looking at accelerators. They all want to become VCs eventually. So I think that's part of the problem.
Why do they want to become VCs?
Because they can charge that 1% and pay themselves.
2 plus 20.
Yeah, plus 20.
20 doesn't happen at all.
2 happens.
So I think my take on this is honestly the complexion of the accelerator still, if you look at an accelerator and ask for 10 lakhs, they'll still take 6 months to give you the 10 lakhs. They'll still take you through 20 rounds of, it's almost like doing a Series A. The flavor of acceleration is missing while the name is an accelerator. There's nobody saying, take the check, let's do the term sheet later.
All they are doing is accelerating themselves. Most of these guys are ABCDs who have come to India and they want you to make Mahabharat and Panchatantra and put masala online and all of that, and that's it.
But I think I haven't met someone who really resembles an accelerator. If you were to break down accelerator into an acronym, and I could do that offline, ACCELERATOR, if I know my spelling, what are those components of accelerator? And the A, everything is missing, except the C, which is some capital. So I think that's the real accelerator, not being, Batman and not being able to fly, right? So
His Batman flew at night, I understand. Batmobile flew at least at night.
I mean, I think again, coming back to the same thing, which is that, yeah, it's completely imperfect, right? But it took like 20 years or 30 years of seed investing for Paul Graham to emerge in America. Yeah. Right? So there was that whole wave of the incubators that came and failed in the 99s, right? Then they learned from that, right? And I suppose, success doesn't teach you anything, it's failure. So, we go through those few rounds of failure. Maybe this first wave of incubators or accelerators will mature, and there'll be a few survivors that'll figure out the game that'll come out, to the next level. But I think it's a great kickstart that we've got in India. Which is happening.
So I met a set of people who are doing something in North India. I'm not naming them on purpose. Who are actually spending time, getting gaddas from the local gurdwara to get a session going over a period of few weeks, working with startup companies.
Getting who? Sorry, getting
wannabe entrepreneurs from around, actually attending a session with them, actually sitting down and working like a dom for next 6 weeks and coming out with that. And I saw a great set of people coming out. So I believe there is the startup energy here, without a question, exists. Somebody was mentioning startup chili. How startup chili has been successful. My personal view is we don't need a startup chili. Our people are already ready. Startup chili is to attract, entrepreneurs in. I don't think we need to attract. There are entrepreneurs all around. I think we have a great thing going because India has always been an entrepreneurial country. Now that we've given it a name. So what are the pieces that you or all of us on the stage could actually add on? We've already poked hole into everything that's happening. So what is it that we would do and do it differently?
I think we need to uncomplicate startups. Yeah. The problem is that I see most startup people attending sessions and discussing term sheets and all kinds of things which are completely irrelevant to a startup. I mean, the time and energy which is going on discussing whether I should be giving ESOP or no, and what percentage should I be giving to this guy and that guy is all ridiculous. I mean, the point is all that time should be going in starting a company and moving forward. And I think because there is excess information available, there are too many lawyers, too many consultants, too many MBA types roaming around, and the problem is all the focus of the startup guys is going somewhere else, while it should all be doing business. That's really what it is.
I was very, very famously or infamously quoted in TechCrunch, saying that TechCrunch should be banned from the developing world. Like, our startups should not be reading TechCrunch and looking at TechCrunch model to be the model. I think they should be founding their own models, not wasting time and doing exactly what
there were no incubators. Just start. Your incubator is your house, backyard. Your kitchen is your dorm, and your friends are your initial funders. I mean, it's as simple as that.
I think to take your point forward, the TechCrunch part, specifically in a country like India, we need to celebrate failure. Nobody shout. TIE should do a session on failure. And
Very
people
important.
should come and celebrate failure. We should have medals for failure. Who failed? Absolutely. Why did you fail? How often did you fail? What made you fail? Why are you so proud of failing? You do 10 sessions of such. That's when people's absolute, skeletons will open. They'll not be afraid of the dark. Right now, starting up is, no, I have to boss everybody who runs the 100 meters. Is not a goddamn Carl Lewis here. People fail.
Look, a friend of mine, he started something called Startup Funeral.
Perfect.
Right?
Wow.
And it was at Cafe Zoe, and it was to come and talk about your failure.
Awesome.
90% of the people he called refused to attend it. To say that,
boss,
I'm not going to come on stage and talk about...
It should be called the carnival.
The carnival.
It should not be called the funeral.
We should have those Rio babes over there,
Yes.
But let me put a critical point, Vishal. How many times were you called in when you failed for the first time to actually come and speak?
Every board meeting was that only.
No, only in the board. But only in the board meetings. How many times were you called on a stage to do that? Unfortunately,
all those question guys were always asking weirdo questions. Where's your revenue model? What people today ask Twitter on public platform, what's your revenue model? Then Costier looks at each other and say, we're finding out yet. So but I don't think the naysayers have always been around.
Our revenue model is money.
Yeah. But I think my point is there has to be institutionalized failure discovery.
Is it also the case that entrepreneurs who failed and then succeeded don't want to talk about their failure till they have succeeded?
Actually, the problem is no MBA wants to do a case study on them. That's right.
There are enough MBAs. How many MBAs in the audience?
Please do a case study on
would
failures.
somebody want to do a case study on failures?
On the greatness of failures. You know, on why is it great to fail?
And then the Thai guys here, Kanchan, Pradeep, when are you doing the session on failure? Smash Up April. That's when they're doing a...
So I volunteer to be part of it.
Alok
Right?
volunteers for it. Okay.
Rayan is volunteering.
So should we put up a website asking for failures to volunteer?
Failures to win.
Failures to win. So we have a session title too. Yeah. Now let's come to something even more base, which is teams. You know, something which I've seen, and I see ecosystems around the world, and what I've seen is the most difficult part that people feel is to attract co-founders and people to come in, especially when you're not starting up in an education institution where you actually get the idea together or you're not working together. What's the scene here? What do you think, people? Is it easy for people to do that, or is it easy for people to share the startups?
See, I think problem about teams is that it can only happen when you meet people. Most people put some post in some website which nobody has seen, or put 3 tweets and then say, oh, I'm not finding anybody. And then they come to forums like this where everybody is looking for funding, and then they say, oh shit, I'm not finding anybody for my team. They should be going and meeting real people, go to cafes, go to events, go to college festivals, go outside Infosys. There are many people playing table tennis. You may find a star there. So the reality is that once you start meeting people in the real world, a percentage of that will convert like any sales percentage, and you will find the right person and not just sitting on your desk.
But is it also the case that what I have come across a lot of entrepreneurs is they've not got themselves enlightened enough to share. Is that also a thing that you see?
I actually like your question very much. I think it's probably the best question in the house today. A little bit karmic actually. It's not easy to get co-founders. I keep relating it to marriage. You have to be lucky in marriage. You have to be lucky in your relationships. Same with co-founders. There's no formula. There's not some train ticket you can buy. Having said that, I think Vishal kind of created a funnel of where to find people. The one point I want to make is the sharing is also not important. It's about who do you want. There are many misconceptions, Vishal, of people say, like I'm not a tech guy, right? I'm a BCom graduate. Typical mindset is, यार मेरे को techie co-founder चाहिए. अरे भैया techie co-founder तो किलो में मिल रहे हैं. You can buy them in kilos.
Techie kilo mein mil rahe, techie co-founder kilo mein.
Yeah, you need someone who is like you. You need a DNA Xerox. Someone who woke up from the other side of the mirror and said, who are you? That in mirror moment in your life. That is very difficult to find. And that comes when you meet people and understand what is it that you are. It's a little bit spiritual. You don't know who you are, you will never find who you're looking for.
I can tell you where to look. You will never find out what Alok is saying. It's difficult to understand. Simple is go to colleges, go to IT companies. Don't go to MBA colleges for sure. Anywhere else, there's a
I met these investors who are investing in a cloning company. Maybe you could get some cloning done, Alok
cheap cloning, right? Just take my DNA and just keep injecting it.
You just mentioned DNA, so that's...
It is. It's
But you know what I think startup events like these can do? They can actually have co-founder dating, right? Yeah. So maybe, you can organize something like that, and it's all part of building teams, right?
I think one of the things that we can always do is, if we have that kind of, people listen to you, maybe what you could do, and I think you're doing this with your forums, where you're getting people who could possibly be the right. It's almost like matchmaking forums,
right.
Which the communities do. It's almost like get them a chance to meet each other. I think that's very important.
There's another very relevant question, just because we're talking of this whole concept of dating, that people come and pitch me, pitch Alok, pitch Rehan on an investment idea or some business idea. We give some feedback and they disappear. People forget, in most of my investments, I actually date the company for at least 6 to 8 months.
Correct.
So we see what's happening, what have they done with feedback, have they come back. Even if I say something completely wrong in the first instance, they come back and then I like the next iteration or the third or the fourth. And that is a good sign, and I urge you to think of it in that. If you want to date a girl, you just don't, the first time she says no, you don't give up, right? You keep trying. So I think that's really important, and the same goes with either an investor or an employee or anybody else, or even a co-founder if you're looking for.
Great point about investor. Great point.
Also, I agree. If you have an investor who writes the check on the first day, probably doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
Or he's a marquee investor, that's your dream come true, which is far more rare.
Or he's in Bombay gym.
That's right.
Rehan, let's ask a question from a completely different flip. Look, leave the so-called informal answers. You've been a part, or in fact, you've been one of the early guys who actually got onto the angel, schema of things, built literally the formula which most of the other groups are following up. And I think you did a lot of stuff. You open sourced a lot of things as Indian Angel Network. What has been your experience in the sense of doing this? It's been something where, it's all right, everybody has hindsight 2020. When you started, there was nothing. So what made you start? And what's the difference you've made? Besides InMobi, please don't.
No, I didn't invest in InMobi. We are, I co-founded the Bombay chapter of Indian Angel Network. And I remember the first 2 deals I led, I couldn't close the round. Nobody wanted to invest in it. And then with great difficulty, I closed the round of the 3rd deal, which I led, a company called Dhruva. And, I had a really tough time, $120,000. So, nowadays I see all these investments which are $500,000, $750,000. This is 2008, $120,000. I had a tough time close the round, right? I had to beg like people. My mom put in money into it to help me close the round, right? Because I believed in the project. The company just raised a $20 million round, Series C. They're in Silicon Valley. Multi-million-dollar a year company, and so things have changed, right? Since then, that company has given a lot of investors money back, right? It's a lot of people have exited, partial exits. I think we are positive now in Indian Angel Network on our portfolio in many ways because of a few investments like these. Things have changed, right? So then there were just a bunch of us. Now there are like 250 members. It's like I said, it's pretty cool to be an angel investor. It's like some of the deals I see nowadays is like fastest finger first, right? The deals are like just getting subscribed. $750,000 deal about 4 weeks ago, subscribed before I could like read it properly, right? So, that's so that's kind of what's happening now. I think it's good, it's bad. The problem is that if there aren't enough exits, this whole angel thing will start. This whole incubator angel thing may start dying out. So hopefully, there'll be a big focus on exits and getting money back.
So that was my next question. Like, when you talk about ecosystems, the ecosystem needs to have an assembly line. In the sense, all parts of it should be looked at. Okay? And one of the biggest part, and, all of us have talked about it, is exit. So is it some way that we can actually work towards making that better? Somebody mentioned regulation yesterday. That regulation and taxation issues, all these are issues which could be helped so that more people are attracted to look at that. Is that something you see?
Well, so the big piece missing in the ecosystem, if you ask me, is actually exits, right, for investors. And I kind of hold a lot of my fellow investors guilty for that because they tend to be very X times focused that, I'm going to try and get a 300X or 100X or, whatever, 50X out of this versus trying to aim for an IRR of about 30-35%, right? So if you have an IRR focus versus an X time focus, gold is giving you 23%, property is giving you 14%, FD is giving you 10%. What more do you want, right? Focus for a 25% IRR, take out money at every stage, thoda nikalte raho, and keep the thing chugging. Then you have money to keep putting back.
And what about alternative methods like the AIMs and the NASDAQs and whatever? Do you think that coming up?
I think the challenge with capital, like we were discussing again in the speaker lounge, is traditionally capital has always been benchmarked with return. People, if you put it into a FD, I asked my Nana, he says, "Bhaiya 6% FD mein milta hai, aap doge kya?" My father's a little more ambitious, he'll put it in some X and Y. So unless you have a benchmark, Rehan, you don't know what's going to come out. But I know all these aims and all that thing, the cost and the effort of going through that rigor is so tough. The cost, effort and trauma of going through an Indian listing and the RAIM and all that, it doesn't meet anybody's expectation. So I think the challenge is, my view is, liquidity that is not exit liquidity but interim liquidity, M&As, things that are even swaps, secondary sale. There's such a lack of liquidity of secondary startup equity in India that we don't know anybody getting acquired, even hearing. You hear these mysterious deals recorded on Economic Times where something got something. You don't know what the hell happened. So I don't know why and the problem is incentive. Bankers won't work on a deal that returns 1 crore rupees because it's not worth their time. So you need failed bankers who will do failed ventures with failed exits and still make a business out of it.
So
I have done 4 exits and I have a completely different story to tell.
But that's not about you, no?
And I'm not going to tell it here.
no, tell it now.
I think part of the whole problem is that people want to hold on. I think, as Alok says in his karmic thing, that you have to give up. So whether it is about giving up control, it's about giving up equity and giving up wealth and sharing the whole thing. I think in all our 4 exits, and these are all cash exits and they're all well documented, you can Google them. I think the best thing was that people were not as greedy and they all wanted the company to grow. So what happened is when they saw the opportunity, the main reason to do this was this is better for the company. And not it is better for me or him or him or him or him. And I think that's the problem, because the VC type investors have done so many deals. And the one good deal which they have, they don't want to sell because this is supposed to pay for the 90 other paps.
So they hold on to it saying,
they have to, this return expectation on this one deal has to be so big because they have 19 failures. And that is what is stopping the exits. Believe me, if today somebody wants to buy in Mobi, there are people willing to buy in Mobi. I'm sure 100%. But the problem is the investors are not selling because it is not meeting their investment, benchmark. That's the problem.
But
it may not be good or bad.
The problem is there was no benchmark.
Or
they made
Dhruva, for example,
They made the benchmark up, is it?
No, I mean, the benchmark is the price you can sell at, right?
No, that's what I said. And unfortunately, that price factors 18 other losses.
I love that. Awesome.
So you're just going around. Besides the formal investment, do you think your informal investments have been far more successful? I know for Vishal, for example, that you have invested in a lot of companies. You spend time investing in them. Do you think we need more people like them who actually spend time? They've been more successful. Is that what the case is?
See, I think the problem is that the philosophy of an angel investor, in my opinion, has to be of that these are your kids and this is my family, and not this is my portfolio. So the minute you start meeting investors who call you that you are part of my portfolio, just get out of that meeting, because he'll be the first one to write you off. But you don't write off family. You do not write off your kids. If they have faltered, you will fix them. You will say, boss, ab ye chodo, ab ye karo, ye uncle ke paas jao, aisa kuch karenge. So in my case, this is my family, all these companies, and I am committed to make them successful. There is no other option. But if this was my portfolio, I'm going to write you off.
So I've been given the signal to wind up, but I'm not going to wind up because we can't wind up without questions and answers, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people wanting to ask questions and answers. But let me put some rules, okay? First. Okay, you identify yourself and introduce yourself. Second, no follow-up questions. You just ask the question and give the mic up and let the audience. And don't, you can address the question to a specific member or leave it for whoever to answer. Okay? So, questions. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Number 1 first.
Hi, I'm Tane. I run a design house. Basically, the question is about the country not celebrating disruption as a method where you grow or you basically go ahead. We all talk about money being grown. We talk about investment when itself is saying growing, but nobody celebrates disruptive ideas in this country is what I believe. I would like to have an opinion from the panel about how about celebrating disruption as a medium of growing as such.
Tane, I know you really well. So he runs one of the greatest design companies that have ever come out of India. So, big hand to him because he's really, really awesome. But I don't understand your question at all. I don't know whether this is a film festival you want to celebrate disruption. Boss, look at, just look at the Indian IRCTC. It disrupted the way tickets were sold in India. And everybody's celebrating IRCTC. So disruption is only benefit. You don't disrupt, you don't blow up roads and then say, let's disrupt them. Let's celebrate. I mean, anything that's helped, look at, Make My Trip, look at Naukri, look at Shadi. They've all disrupted convention and they've all become very successful.
Anybody else want to take the same question?
I think people don't celebrate disruption, people celebrate a successful business. Correct. So the problem is there are many disruptions which have, so they would be the perfect people to talk in our failed sessions actually.
Mumbai roads, man, they're disrupted, but we don't celebrate them.
Good one. Sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I am Nafis from Bangalore. I am not from the IT sector. I am from the agriculture sector. I grow coffee and pepper. This question is to Alok and then Vishal and then Rihan. We wanted to have a carnival of failures. The question is, please narrate one such incident you had in your career.
I'll talk about a company we just shut down. So we invested in a company. My failure in reading the company was the age disparity between the two co-founders. One was 22 and the other guy was 42. And they started off as great teams, but they fought in board meetings. And we thought they were family board, like the dinner table, like you said, right, family. We thought they were dinner table brawls. And when we got $200,000 check-in from an investor, and the first board meeting, the young guy told the older guy, you get out of the company. So I kept SMSing him and saying, dude, let's not talk about like family, but it became so bad that I think the failure was the investor side, and we put money in, we put time in. I mean, it's not money, man. If you spend 2 years of the company, that to my mind is $1 million. Then it was so dreadful because I couldn't understand why these two people who were getting dollars, investors and time couldn't get along with each other. So just making sure that people vibe. Every day you wake up, your mind is not the same as it was yesterday morning. So when you put two people in a room and then a business plan together or business together, it's crazy. Who can predict?
So I think I learned something the very hard way. My dad and everybody used to tell me कि boss पैसा पहला लो, बाद में बात करो. And in one of our investments, again not going into details, we had, like all investors who wanted to tranche investments, right? It's a very common thing to do. Unfortunately, people had told me that listen, when it means tranche, which means the tra will come, but anch won't ever come. And it will anch you. And that's exactly what happened. The company ran out of the first tra of the tranche, and the other anch never came, and the rest is history. Nice. So please take all money in advance, no tranche. Remember that.
I want to take a question on Twitter which has come by. So there was somebody's asking, Vishal Gondal and Alok, if management does, if you don't like MBAs and you don't want them up there in entrepreneurial companies, why do boards push MBAs down your throat?
Because they are themselves MBAs, right? I mean, they can only cover their ass that way.
Let me be a little more subjective here very quickly. I don't think it's that we don't like MBAs. There's a lot of unlearning that MBAs have to do in entrepreneurial setups. The whole MBA culture is very well fine-tuned for FMCG, banking, BFSI, where systems are set. You said put an MBA into a GE Capital, he'll run it like a machine. You put an MBA into games to win, where you're telling him, boss, give me the correlation between ranks on iTunes as well as reviews and 3 stars. The guy will say, they never taught it to me. So to make him learn that is the disruption. And that's the time we don't have. That's why the non-MBA.
I think Microsoft Excel should be banned in startups. There's no role of that software.
I don't agree.
Anywhere.
This is Dr. Akash Rajpal here. I run a startup which is trying to take the opportunity of helping people who don't get insurance and help them reduce surgery costs and get them low-cost generic medicines. My question is to Vishal. What would you look into this as an investor? I understand business plan is a challenge. We try and do that, and we have been struggling, and now we have a...
I've already invested in the BAP of everything you do. It's called Doc Suggest. We get doctor appointments to anybody without insurance. We can help them everything. So I'm sorry.
No, this is...
No, of course.
Yeah, this is not... This is... Okay, so
So it's a good business idea, very good, interesting segment. It's not e-commerce. Please look at it.
Okay.
Listen, I've been threatened that they switch off the mics, okay? But all the panelists are available. Mop them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can we get prizes or gifts or something?
Yeah, but we're getting something better than the gifts.
Okay.
If you wear your hat on.
Don't tell me it's a photograph.
So, and I hope you've been watching what's going on Twitter. So from comedians to, the beeps and the Batmobiles and all of that.
If you don't have the balls to be a comedian.
Sorry? Okay. Beeps to win. That's the... So, Thai has identified a couple of charities and they have made a donation, a meaningful contribution from their end, from all the speakers to those charities. So, thanking Prashant for the wonderful moderation. This is money from your behalf to those charities. He wants the money. Vishal. Rehan, thank you so much. Alok, thank you so much. Guys, put your hands together for the wonderful panel.